What's going on, everybody? So, man, as you guys log into this live, we're just going to go over some footage. And, it's just one of those things that I want to show people, the reality. There's a lot of other clips I could have used as well, but this one seems to just kind of be trending right now. You guys know for years I've said what? That the media is a false prophet, right? Broadcasting, you cast a spell on somebody. And so, when I look at, the media, and let's just start with the music industry, for example. Why can't those people just get up there and dance and sing? Have you noticed at all the award shows, if you notice in all the music videos, there's always, demons and devils and demonic themes and taking shots at Christianity. Why can't they just get up there, do their little dance, do their little song? Because the reality is they've come into covenant, right? And we talk about this all the time. Satan tempting Jesus, hey, I'll give you this, I'll give you that if you bow down and worship me. And so a lot of the people that you see, every blessing, all success, right? It isn't from God. People are selling their soul. And so they can't just make a love song. We got to make a love song and then we got to have a devil dancing in the background or just some weirdo stuff. And it's the same thing with news media, all right? You're not going to get a job, right, at, let's say, CNN being conservative. You're not going to get a job at Fox News being a liberal, because essentially what it is it's covenants, right? You can come work for us, but you have to push what we want you to push. You have to push our ideologies. And so you have to understand, no matter what kind of media that you're intaking, even this is a form of media. And I tell you guys, don't put anybody on a pedestal. Pray about everything for yourself. The problem is a lot of people don't take the time to study. They don't take the time to research. They don't take the time to do their due diligence. And so they are told what to think by big media, by Hollywood, by the news media. And it's dangerous because the bottom line is they have an agenda. And so the last thing I'll say before we get into these clips is that you have to understand it's not just about having an opinion, right? It's not just about, like I said, with the music industry. Why is it that they're sitting there, right, always having demons and demonic themes in their performances in their music videos? Because that's part of what comes with it. We're going to give you this record deal, but we need you to push this. It's no different than what we're about to see in some of these clips. Look, that's why you've seen people, when they start saying the name of Jesus, on the news and things like that, they block it out, they bleep it out. There's a very famous clip. They had, I think, some athlete on, and he was giving, glory to God, and then they were like, "Oh, we're having technical difficulties." And so that's why I call the media the false prophet media. I call the media, the machine, right? The propaganda machine. You better just do your due diligence and research and study for yourself. So we're gonna go through this clip. I'm gonna open it up with I believe Vivek. He was on the Breakfast Club. We're gonna start with that, and then we're gonna transition. Now, they said this woman lost her job. I've been seeing, other videos. They said she lost her job because of this interaction. I haven't been able to find any proof of that. But nevertheless, this clip is very interesting to watch. So let's add this to the stage and let's dive in. All right. He makes a point here that I want to talk about before we get down into this part over here on MSNBC with this young lady.
Politicians in general. You hear so many different Republicans have said so many negative things about Donald Trump, but as soon as he becomes the nominee, everybody just falls in line.
And normally they fall in line in unison, and you can rage against the machine. It doesn't feel like Trump and Vance are like, it's not there. Like,
so what do you call that? Is that flip flopper?
So here's what I will say: is it fair game to press JD Vance hard on why he said certain things about Donald Trump before versus what his view is on Donald Trump today? Yes, I think that's fair game. Mm-hmm. And has he been pressed and has he answered for that? Yes, he has. What I would love to see is both candidates, and Kamala Harris hasn't done this yet. I'd love to challenge her to do it because I think it's good for the voters of the country. She hasn't sat down for one media interview of a hard-pressing one-on-one variety yet. And she's actually the leading candidate now in many of the polls for U.S. president. So I just think we deserve a country where the people are willing to show up. She should show up here. She should show up on CNBC, where I was this morning, and actually engage in hard questions about what her beliefs are. You saw JD, say what you will, on 3 shows yesterday, pressed on exactly that very issue. And I think that's good for the American people to then be able to.
Big point right there that we just want to talk about. Trump used to talk about this. He always said, look, why is it that you guys give me the most, hard, difficult questions? Now, one thing you could say about Trump, he hasn't ducked the smoke. He came to Chicago He did that sit down with the what was it? It was the Black Organization for Journalism. I forgot the exact name for it. He sat down, he did that. Kamala Harris didn't sit down. They had also invited her. He's done debates, on CNN where it seems like he's debating, the people that are supposed to be moderating the debate. It seems like he's debating his opponent and the moderators, you know what I'm saying? And then he made the point that a lot of times it's like, man, you guys do not give Joe Biden these hard questions. But when it comes to me, it's like, you're giving me all the tough questions. And what he's saying here is true. She's been the nominee for over a month. She won't sit down and do an interview without a teleprompter. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that that's something to be outraged about. And I think the fact that the media is not pressing that and they're acting like that's not happening, you know what I'm saying? Anybody can see it. The energy is not the same. They sit down with Biden, they sit down with her. It's these soft questions. They're not really asking them about policy. If they do talk to them, it's always about Trump. It's never about where they failed. It's never about where America's going wrong. It's always just them talking about Trump. And we're going to see that in these later clips.
To make their own judgment. It's not your judgment or the journalist's judgment, but it's what people at home are able to see to assess. Do I actually believe somebody who believes they changed their mind over the course of time? Kamala Harris might have changed her mind. I think it's okay. Flip-flopping is one thing. Changing your mind thoughtfully is another. But you deserve to be questioned on it. And it's up to the voters to decide whether or not they believe you. Right now, we're not getting that chance. And I do think it is, you're saying, well, hopefully we're going to see that. I'm not sure yet that we will. It's been about a solid month that Kamala Harris has been the presumptive nominee. We got the convention coming up, this coming week, next week. I think it is vital for the health of this country that the same treatment that the media gave Joe Biden in that last few weeks after his debate, they didn't do that for 3 years.
Yeah.
For 3 years, we missed that. The fact that it took that early.
Now, this guy, Charlemagne, he says, yeah, he's not. It's true. Everybody knows, like, America was just bad the last 3 years. And it's like the media would never really, push on, Joe Biden because they want to protect who they want to protect. They were trying to act like we all knew that Joe Biden had some issues, right? We were saying that, like, hey, he doesn't have the capacity to be president right now. And the media's like, no. But they were trying to protect him by never really pressing him, right? The way that they would put their foot, on Trump's, neck or whatever you want to call it, they would not do that with Biden. And then when he got destroyed in the debate, that's what it took for them to start being realistic.
Debate and Donald Trump demolishing him in that debate, for the country to suddenly wake up and say that Joe Biden is not a functioning U.S. president is actually a damning indictment of the entire media and its relationship to the political class. So we can't make that same mistake with Kamala Harris. I think the media needs to demand that she at least face the same kind of questioning that, frankly, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are getting right now. And then the public it's up to them to decide. That's a functioning democracy.
But again, because you're not implying by her not doing the interviews and based off of the way that Biden was treated in those last couple of weeks, you're not implying that you don't think she's competent to be the president of the United States, right?
Yeah, I definitely have it sped up for the sake of time. The next clip is not going to be sped up. We're just going to make our way through it.
I'm saying the media is covering for her right now the same way they covered for Biden for 3 years.
You think they're covering, or you think that she's just using?
They're not playing hard. They're not paying this. She's using a strategy. Okay, I think she's using some smart.
Which politicians do.
That's fine, but I think it's the media's job now to cut through that strategy and say this person very well could be the president of the United States. Has at least a 50% chance right now, according to most forecasts, of being the next president. She deserves to be questioned, not with kid gloves, but questioned with the gloves off on what exactly her policy vision is for the country.
Here, I want to talk to you about the immunity.
This is what I wanted to get into, just so you can see, just you're already seeing her eyes, like something is off. But what bothers me about the media, it's so clear that they have an agenda. It's like when ever seen Spider-Man, right? The guy is just set on, look, we're gonna only put out bad news about Spider-Man, and it feels like is this an interview or are you interrogating me? Right. And they just don't have the same energy for Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And that's an issue to me because it's like you're trying to make me believe that these people are so bad, so evil, so wicked. But at the same time, I see what I see with my own eyes, but you guys won't put that kind of pressure on them. So let's play through this.
Ruling and the implications. This is what Donald Trump said last year about wanting to target his political opponents. Take a listen.
I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family.
Senator, if former President Trump were to win, if you were to be his vice president, would you support him appointing a special prosecutor to go after his political enemies, the Bidens?
Well, first of all, Kristen, I find it
Let me be honest. When Trump picked this guy, JD Vance, I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't really feeling it. I thought he should have picked Vivek, the other African American brother. I thought it would just, you got two white men there. You already know what the narrative is. But I ain't gonna lie. When I listen to him talk, when I look into his story, you know what I'm saying, he's winning me over. But I just want you to see how he's answering these questions and how she reacts when and it's crazy because people have done this to me for years. They did it in the Bible. It's like they try to ask you a question to set you up, to make you give an answer that they can use against you. And so he's going to very smartly answer some of these questions and just look at her eyes, look at her countenance every time.
interesting how much the media and the Democrats have lost their mind over this particular quote. Donald Trump is talking about appointing a special prosecutor to investigate Joe Biden for wrongdoing. Joe Biden has done exactly that for the last few years and has done far more in addition to that to engage in a campaign of lawfare against his political opposition. I think what Donald Trump is simply saying is we ought to investigate the prior administration. There are obviously many instances of wrongdoing. The House Oversight Committee has identified a number of corrupt business transactions that may or may not be criminal. Of course, you have to investigate to find out. So I think Donald Trump saying, look, let's do the basic work of investigating wrongdoing is a totally reasonable thing for him to do. And frankly, the Biden administration has done far worse. So if you think that what Donald Trump is proposing is a threat to democracy, isn't what Biden has already done a massive threat to our system of law and government?
Senator, just to be very clear, though, Joe Biden didn't appoint a special prosecutor. The attorney general did that. Trump was indicted by grand juries. He was found guilty by a jury of his peers in New York. But can we just go back to the core question here? Would you support him taking such an action? It sounds like you're saying, yes, you would.
I would absolutely support investigating.
Notice how she's wording it. And she's trying to get him to say yes the way she wants him to. She's wording the question in a manipulative way. And she doesn't want to hear the explanation because the explanation makes sense. They had cocaine in the White House. There's been things that were on Hunter Biden's laptop that if you looked at it, which by the way, the media didn't really cover it like they should have, how they would have covered it if it was one of Donald Trump's sons. But if you looked at the stuff that was on the laptop, there was stuff that was questionable. There's nothing wrong with saying, look, there's going to be an investigation. There's nothing wrong with saying when they were saying that Trump was in collusion with Russia and all that stuff came out not to be true. When Trump was saying they were spying on my campaign, and that ended up being true. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we're going to do an investigation. If there's nothing there, you shouldn't be worried about an investigation, especially with the way that they've come for this man, attacked this man, and they're rejoicing. So it's cool when they do it, right? But it's a problem if Trump's going to do the same thing.
Prior wrongdoing by our government. Absolutely, that's what you have to have in a system of law and order, Kristen. But I have to reject the premise here. Joe Biden appointed the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, who, of course, answers to Joe Biden, can be fired by Joe Biden. So the idea that the Biden administration has nothing to do with the appointment of the special prosecutor, I think completely betrays a misunderstanding of how our system of government actually works. And of course, Kristen, we have to make this point, Kristen, that the prosecution of Donald Trump in New York, which I think now is fundamentally been thrown in doubt by this immunity case, it was one of the main guys was a Department of Justice official in the Biden administration who jumped ship to join a local prosecutor's office to go after Donald Trump.
And yet the DOJ told
doesn't make you question
Senator,
the legitimacy of the prosecution. That's a problem.
Well, Senator, that happens all the time. People are appointed from Washington, but the DOJ told Congress, testified this week
Kristen,
that it reviewed
it happens.
Hold on, Senator.
Are you really saying, Kristen?
Senator, let me finish my sentence.
All
then
the
I'll
time.
let you finish. Hold on.
The number.
Let me just
Please.
finish this. The
Go ahead.
DOJ
Sorry.
told Congress.
It happens all the time. Come on, man.
This week, it reviewed all communications since Biden took office and found no contact between federal prosecutors and those involved with that case in New York. Can you stick to the substance of the question, though? Let me just ask, because I just want to stick with this line of theory that you are laying out, which is you are saying it's not okay for Joe Biden to weaponize the Justice Department. If it's not okay for Joe Biden to weaponize the Justice Department, as you say, which there's no evidence of that, why is it okay for Donald Trump?
Are you serious? Do you guys realize what happened? Like, there was people working at a higher level of government who went down to, what was it? Was it in New York? That New York level, just so they could go after Trump. Like, come on, man.
Trump to do that.
Well, Kristen, first of all, you said that it happens all the time, that the number 3 person in the Department of Justice jumps ship to join a local prosecutor's office to go after the president's political opponent. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of American democracy, and I don't think that we should legitimize it. Now, if Donald Trump's attorney general had his number 2 or his number 3 jump ship to a local prosecutor's office in Ohio or Wisconsin, and that person then went after Donald Trump's political opposition, that's a different conversation.
Senator,
all he's suggesting is that we should investigate credible arguments of wrongdoing. That's all that Donald Trump is saying. That is not a threat to democracy. That's merely reinforcing our system of law and government.
Bottom line, you are okay with Donald Trump appointing a special prosecutor to go after his political enemies, which would include Joe Biden. You're just, to button that up, it sounds like you're saying yes. Let me move on.
Why don't they want to button anything up with Kamala Harris or Joe Biden? Like we said at the beginning of this video, as you've seen Vivek say, right, they don't put this kind of pressure. Anytime you see, they don't put this kind of heat on them. Kamala Harris has yet to sit down with this kind of scrutiny, with this kind of like, yo, for example, I just give you a quick example. You said that Joe Biden was racist. You said this, you said that, and then you flip-flopped. You know, she needs to sit down to one of these kind of interviews, but they won't do it. And then there's another interview I saw where Trump was sitting down and he was saying, like, why don't y'all ask Kamala and Joe these kind of questions? JD said the same thing in a similar one. They won't do it. And that has to be a red flag to you guys, because clearly she's trying to button it up and narrow it down to the agenda that she wants to push. Right? That's really what's happening. Like what you're seeing right here is a game of chess, and she's bad at it. You know, anybody who, like, now, if you're watching this and you just, you know, all emotions and feelings, you're going to come out and saying, yeah, like that was like people who say Joe Biden won that last debate, right? If you watch it through the lens of feelings, but if you objectively watch this, you can clearly see what is happening here.
And though, to my next question, I want to talk to you about the Heritage Foundation. It's a conservative think tank in Washington. It shapes the agenda they would like to see in a Trump second term. The president said this after the Supreme Court's ruling this week. Take a look.
We're in the process of taking this country back. No one in the audience should be despairing. No one should be discouraged. We ought to be really encouraged by what happened yesterday. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
My issue with this is, why don't you play the clips of Trump saying over and over again he has nothing to do with Project 2025? And then you got Kamala Harris when she did go out and speak. I think it was the DNC event where she had Meg the Stallion out there twerking and shaking her butt. And she's talking about, oh, we have to be against Project 2025. You guys know that, number one, Trump has already said he has nothing to do with it. That is an individual think tank, like there are many others that you go read the 900-page document. Some of the stuff you might agree with, some of it you might not, but Trump has nothing to do with it. And it's like they won't show that. And that's the part that bothers me, because it's manipulation. It's the same thing that they did January 6th. Trump had the tweets. He pulled out the receipts. Remember when that CNN anchor was interviewing him and she's like, oh, you should have did more. You should have did this. You incited the thing. Trump clearly said to go, be peaceful, respect the officers. He even tweeted against it, and they don't show it because they want you to see it a certain way. The same way that they don't show you the videos, right, of the police officers at the Capitol opening the doors and leading people around. Like, you got to question that. Why is it that you're trying to make me see it a certain way or believe it a certain way? It's because they have a greater agenda. Let's keep going.
Do you support those calls for a revolution, and would political violence ever be justified?
Well, of course, political violence is never justified, Kristen. You'll have to ask the president of the Heritage Foundation to defend his remarks if you'd like to do that. I will say, look, the Heritage Foundation does a lot of good work. It does a lot of things that I disagree with, a lot of things that I agree with. But the Heritage Foundation is a nonprofit organization that works on public policy. And I think it's an important part of how DC functions and operates. We'll continue to have important conversations in the Republican Party with a whole host of think tanks from the right and from the left as we craft public policy. That's the way the city works. And again, I'm not going to be the person who serves as the spokesperson for the Heritage Foundation. I don't have any affiliation.
Sounds like you're distancing yourself from those comments that talk of political violence.
Look, Kristen, I certainly don't think political violence is justified. That's certainly actually not what I think that Kevin Roberts was saying to begin with. But again, have him on your program to defend what he said. And I think that's the best thing to do.
Let me ask you specifically about Project 2025 for our viewers so that they know. It's basically a policy blueprint for a second Trump presidency. It's supported by the Heritage Foundation and other conservative groups. The Biden campaign has said Project 25, quote, should scare every single American. It would give Trump limitless power over our daily lives. Among the things they are calling for is reversing approval of the abortion pill, mifepristone. But Donald Trump says he supports access to that pill, actually. Do you support access to abortion medication as Donald Trump does?
Well, Kristen, you asked about Project 2025, and I want to be clear here. That Trump explicitly has said his own transition team runs the Trump transition and will run the Trump administration. Again, you have a whole host of organizations, some of which have good ideas, some of which have bad ideas, and some of which have both. And I'm sure the Trump administration will talk to a lot of people as it's crafting an agenda to bring back American manufacturing jobs, to lower inflation, and to bring peace and prosperity back to the world. That's the whole reason why me and so many others are trying to reelect Donald Trump, is because the agenda actually worked. It was his agenda, and I think it'll work again for the American people. On the question of the abortion pill, what so many of us have said is that, look, we certainly don't, the Supreme Court made a decision saying that the American people should have access to that medication. Donald Trump has supported that opinion. I support that opinion. I think it's important to say that we actually have to have an important conversation in this country about what our abortion policy should be. Donald Trump is the pragmatic leader here. He's saying most abortion policy is going to be decided by the states. We want to make it easier and more affordable for young women and parents to have families to begin with. We want to lower housing costs, eliminate the surprise medical bills that so many families see after they have a baby. So, that's the Trump and Republican approach to this issue. Meanwhile, Joe Biden wants taxpayer-funded abortion up to the moment of birth. It's so crazy to me how the Democrats frame this as Republicans. Just let me finish, Kristen. They frame Democrats as being reasonable and pragmatic, when in reality, Senator, Republicans are the one trying to find some common ground here.
As you know, very few abortions take place later in pregnancy, and almost always because there is a medical emergency. I know Trump is trying to distance himself from Project 2025, but we have to point out that a number of people who are involved with it are former Trump officials.
Notice how manipulative the language is through this whole interview. She says, I know Trump's trying to distance himself from Project 20. He was never connected to it in the first place. You guys in the media are pushing it. And you know why they're pushing this? Let me tell you why they're pushing this before we go to the rest of this clip. They know that the argument, right, against them is that you guys are pushing the LGBTQ agenda, right? The lawlessness, the things that we see in California, a lot of that stuff, right? And so a lot of conservatives, you know, that's the perspective we're coming. Like, look at what America is becoming. They're destroying America. So now they come back and they say, you know, Trump's a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris wasn't voted for. She was selected like some kind of Trojan horse, right? And so now their counter to all the LGBTQ agenda and all that stuff is Project 2025, which Trump has absolutely zero to do with. But they want to paint that picture because people see like, yo, under Joe Biden, this has been trash. Now, obviously, as Christians, we're completely against, abortion. That's just the bottom line. We understand that, you know what, we're not voting for pastors or anything like that, right? This is just the reality of, the politicking. If they come out, they're trying to put the power back in the states instead of having it at the federal government level.
Ben Carson, Peter Navarro, Russ Vought, and others. But just to be clear, you support mifepristone being accessible.
Yes, Kristen, I do. But again, on the Project 2025 issue, what the
I wish that they would ask, like, I don't know if I could ever get into these spaces, but I wish they would ask, like, okay, when they have these LGBTQ parades and you have the video footage of these grown old men, and women out there completely butt naked. Like, there's children in the crowd, they're throwing condoms in the crowd, there's dudes walking around with their junk out, you know, and ask the same kind of pressure they're trying to put on this guy right now. Hey, do you support this? Do you think that this is okay? Hey, Joe Biden, you see over here at the LGBTQ parade, look at this video. There's kids in the crowd, right? And there's a grown man completely butt naked. Joe Biden, do you think this is okay? Kamala Harris, do you think they'll never put them in that kind of, as she said earlier, button them up and see where they stand kind of thing? You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy to me.
media and the Democrats are trying to do is attach its most unpopular elements to the Trump administration. It's a 900-page document. I guarantee there are things that Trump likes and dislikes about that 900-page document, but he is the person who will determine the agenda of the next administration. All he said very explicitly is, I am in charge of the next administration because I'm the person running for president. It's just important to make that clarification.
Let me ask you something.
Doesn't it bother you guys? I saw this video the other day. It was from January 6th, where it showed some kind of police officer with a bag. He drops the bag off at the building. 10 minutes later, somebody comes and grabs it. And they say, like, oh, this was like a pipe bomb or something. Like, does it bother you guys that there's actual video footage of these officers escorting people through the Capitol, but they push this narrative in the media, and then it's like, why can't I just take the video, show it to you guys, and say, hey, what do you think about that? Joe Biden, what do you think about the fact that they were leading these people through the Capitol, but they're so focused on pushing their agenda that, you know, what they want you to think about it, like, it just doesn't happen. That has to be frustrating.
That caught our eye. This is something you wrote in the New York Times op-ed in 2017 about former President Barack Obama. You criticized his policies, but you also said, quote, it is one of the great failures of recent political history that the Republican Party was too often unable to disconnect legitimate political disagreements from the fact that the president himself is an admirable man. For at a pivotal time in my life, Barack Obama gave me hope that a boy who grew up like me could still achieve the most important of my dreams. For that, you write, I will miss him. And the example he set, you wrote that just days before Donald Trump was inaugurated. Do you still?
I ain't gonna lie. Like, the way he answered this, I was just like, man, I can respect it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some wisdom and truth in how he answered this.
Still consider Barack Obama to be an admirable man who you miss?
Well, you know, I grew up in a broken family, Kristen, and I just wanted to be a good husband and dad. And certainly Barack Obama, despite my many political disagreements with him, he's clearly a good husband and a father. By the way, I'd say the same thing about Donald Trump, whose children love him. And I think this is one of the things the media often misses about Trump, is how genuinely devoted he is to his Donald Trump.
I don't know if that was her breathing in the background like that, because the thing is, she clearly has a direction, right? That she's trying to take this, trying to, you know, manipulate the conversation. She's trying to get him to say something a certain way. And it's like, he's using their platform, right? They don't want to talk about how Trump's kids love him. Like, Trump's kids clearly love him. You know what I'm saying? They want to keep a certain narrative out there. They don't want to humanize Trump. You know what I'm saying? And so when he flips it and he starts going that direction, it sounded like she kind of breathed kind of hard. It's hilarious to me. I think it's just genius on JD Vance's part.
He's clearly a good husband and a father. By the way, I'd say the same thing about Donald Trump, whose children love him. And I think this is one of the things the media often misses about Trump, is how genuinely devoted he is to his family, to his grandchildren, and how part of his pro-life messaging, his fundamental pro-life view, is that we ought to make it easier for more American families to have those thriving children and thriving families. So certainly, I think we've been blessed with a lot of good examples across our country. And yeah, absolutely. Was Barack Obama a good president? No. Was he a good husband and father? Yes.
So he's still an admirable man?
look how crazy this broad looks, yo. Bro, like he answered that perfectly. He's like, look, President Obama, terrible president. Don't agree with his policies, but you know what? He's a good father. He's he's got he's a good husband. His marriage is clearly working. You know all that. And then she's like, so he's an admirable man. Like it's crazy to me, man. Like he answered your question.
That's just what I said, Kristen. Absolutely.
All right. I have to ask you about Veep stakes. Of course, have you gotten the call from Donald Trump? Has he asked you to be his running mate?
I have not gotten the call, Kristen, and I'll certainly, maybe not the first person that I'd let know if that happened, but we'll let the media know if I ever get that call. But most importantly, Kristen, we're just trying to work to elect Donald Trump. Whoever his vice president is, he's got a lot of good people he could choose from. It's the policies that worked and the leadership style that worked for the American people. I think we have to bring that back to the White House, and I'm fighting to try to do that.
Well, here we are about a week before the Republican convention. Before I let you go, can you say unequivocally here and now that you will accept the results of the 2024 election, no matter what they are?
So long as it's a free and fair election, Kristen, of course we will. We will use constitutional processes to challenge issues if we think there are issues. But if it's a free and fair election, we will do what the Constitution requires. We will respect the results. And I expect those results are going to be to re-elect Donald Trump.
It was a free and fair election in 2020. Donald Trump took his concerns to court. He lost in court, but he still has not conceded. Do you understand that when you refuse to commit unequivocally, that feeds into people's concerns, skepticism about the nation's electoral process?
Well, Kristen, I don't agree with that, actually. I think that feeding into people's concerns about our electoral process is that one half of America's political segment, they won't support legislation that makes it harder for illegal aliens to vote. They won't support universal voter ID in our elections, even though you have to present ID to do almost anything in this country. I think taking people's concerns seriously about election fraud is the way to reinforce security and confidence in our elections.
Yeah, Senator, it's already against the law for non-citizens to vote. But just on that very point, when others refuse to say, yes, we will accept the election results, do you understand how that undermines people's confidence in the electoral system?
Watch this.
But Kristen, what I just said is I don't agree with that. What I think actually undermines people's confidence in the electoral system is when the media is incurious about obvious examples of problems in our electoral system. I think we've got great elections, but a lot of things could be better in certain states. I want to work to make that happen so the American people have greater confidence in their elections. That's what I'll keep doing.
Senator, thank you for being here.
Man, so you see, and that's just a little taste. I'm going to play the first clip back, and I'm going to show you one more thing. But my point behind this, why I'm saying this is, guys, I personally believe the media is going to have a big part, and it already does, in pushing the B system, introducing the Antichrist. Like, the media is going to love the Antichrist. People say, oh, Trump is the Antichrist. There's no way Trump is the Antichrist because the media hates him. The media is going to tell you the Antichrist is awesome. Support the Antichrist, support the legislation the Antichrist is pushing. Because that's what a lot of people, they just go with what the media is saying. And isn't it interesting that you can't find an interview, right? And this is what Vivek is talking about here, where they've pressed Kamala Harris like this. And there's plenty of material. Like, I think I saw maybe one a couple years ago about her not ever going to the border. And, that was one of her jobs as the VP. But, with Joe Biden, here, I'll just play this clip for those of you who came late, and then I'm going to show you one more clip, and we'll call it a day.
Politicians in general, you hear so many different Republicans have said so many negative things about Donald Trump, but then as soon as he becomes the nominee, everybody just falls in line.
And normally they fall in line in unison, and you can rage against the machine. It doesn't feel like Trump and Vance are, it's not there.
So what do you call that? Is that flip-flopper?
So here's what I will say is it fair game to press JD Vance hard on why he said certain things about Donald Trump before versus what his view is on Donald Trump today? Yes, I think that's fair game. And has he been pressed, and has he answered for that? Yes, he has. What I would love to see is both candidates, and Kamala Harris hasn't done this yet. I'd love to challenge her to do it because I think it's good for the voters of the country. She hasn't sat down for one media interview of a hard-pressing one-on-one variety yet. And she's actually the leading candidate now in many of the polls for U.S. president. So
you could go to the beginning if you want to see that clip. I just want to show you guys one more clip as we end this video. This is
and I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley. And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities. We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
but
We are concerned about irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these stories simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Well, you get the point. I've shared that video before. I'm just telling you guys, man. I've said it a million times before. The Bible says broad is the way that leads to destruction. Narrow is the way that leads to eternal life. When you have people that are, making the world go around, media, education, politics, and they're not kingdom and they're not saved, anytime that they're moving in unity, you have to remember the Bible says that there's the gods of this world. The Bible says that the spirit of the Antichrist is already moving throughout the earth. And so there is a demonic agenda, right? And some people knowingly, some people unknowingly are pushing that demonic agenda. No different with the news. It's the same thing with the music industry, right? That's the easiest example that I can use because it's kind of easy now for people to see it. Why can't those people just dance and sing without pushing demonic, visuals and demonic stuff in the music videos and the LGBTQ agenda? It's like, no, you came into covenant. We'll let you be this music star, but you're going to push this agenda. And when you perform, we're going to do these demonic rituals. It's no different in the news. Like, hey, you could work for us, but this is the agenda that we're pushing. This is the way that it's broadcasting, right? Of which cast a spell on you. The Bible says to have the mind of Christ, right? To cast down every wicked imagination. We know that it's a battle in the mind. If Satan can get you to see it a certain way or get you to see it the wrong way, remember the Bible says there's a way that seemeth right to a man, but the end of that way is destruction. So they're trying to project a certain way of thinking and seeing that is just beneficial of pushing whatever agenda. But now because they see people are waking up to that, right now they come up with Project 2025 and all that kind of stuff when no, they're the ones who are turning America into a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you look closely enough, right, and you check it, what I'm saying for yourself, you're going to see that there's just clearly double standards all the way down. People love to say, oh, it's two wings of the same bird. No, it's not, right? I'm not saying that the other side is better, but that other wing of that other bird does not get the same treatment that the one side gets. Hillary Clinton's able to destroy emails, Hunter Biden's son, right? The stuff that was on the laptop, they didn't give it the proper media coverage that they would have if it was Trump's son. You know what I'm saying? They ignore it. Just look at it for yourself. Don't be deceived. Go to www.marcusrogersministries.org if you want to support what we're doing here in Chicago. Go stream the worship music. I got one more rap album that I'm going to drop pretty soon. I got a single dropping this week called Everything. I hope you guys enjoy it. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for all you do. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section.